What are the systems of supremacy and how have they shown up in your business, and how have they been masked in a way that attempts you to feel like they're here to save you? In this episode, I am breaking down the main systems of supremacy that I've seen within my own business as well as other businesses that show up through industrialism, colonialism, and the patriarchy, and how as women we listen and internalize this, and we've been conditioned to show up in a certain way in our business because of these supremacy systems and the supremacy culture, and how that can be the thing that's holding us back, but really masked in this savior complex of attempting to save us or allow us to show up in a certain way, or if we just did this, and this, or if we just did this one thing right, or maximized our productivity, or showed up more quote-unquote professionally, we would get the results that we want. So in this episode, I am debunking those systems and helping you to start detoxing from them in order to create a more fulfilling business and life. All right, let's jump right in. I'm your host, Tiffany Chung, your go-to for all things marketing, mindset, and manifestation. I grew my online business from 0 to beyond 6 figures in 8 months. My purpose is to empower women to step into the highest, most aligned versions of themselves. If you are ready to take charge of your life, learn how to design a wildly successful business, and leave limiting beliefs behind, you've come to the right place. You will learn the actionable tips and step-by-step strategies on money, manifestation, and social media. It's time to step into your role as boss, to raise your vibration and tap into your unlimited potential today. Welcome to the Social Reset Podcast. Oh, systems of supremacy, how they show up in such sneaky ways to try to attempt to show up as saviors in our business, but actually end up being the worst rotten apple that you could ever bite into. And none of us are exempt from any of these specific systems, regardless of where you live, regardless of who you are, and essentially what your background is. This has affected us and the people around us and our lifestyle for a very, very long time. And it isn't a system that any of us are exempt from. And it's also not ever anything that we can completely rid ourselves from either, at least in this lifetime, while it's still this system and the oppressive systems that are in play are much greater than just any one of us. And what I mean by that is that it's not your job to single-handedly dismantle any one or all of these systems. The goal of this episode is to help you become aware of how this is showing up in your business and learn to start detoxing and deconditioning from these systems in order to create more fulfillment in the way that you're meant to, rather than driving yourself into the ground or doing things that you feel like you should do in the name of the patriarchy or industrialism or colonialism. And if these terms are fairly new to you, or maybe like you're thinking, yeah, I know what this is, but I'd still like to hear more about it in terms of examples and how it's maybe showing up in entrepreneurships. Maybe you understand it in the way of understanding communication and culture within society, but maybe not so much where it is showing up in your entrepreneurial life. So I'm going to start with the good old patriarchy. The patriarchy shows us that the wounded masculine is much stronger and greater and more powerful than the feminine. And we see this over and over, where we see that men's needs and sexual desires or urges or essentially anything that they crave is much more important and ranks over what the women's literal rights. So we see this in body autonomy, where women do not have the right to choose medically what they can do with their own bodies, but yet men get, Viagra just flying off the shelves because there is something about that dynamic that allows men to have what they want over women. And then women are seen as lesser than, women are seen as very emotional, very dramatic. You've seen this in media, in the way that women are portrayed in songs, in TV shows, in movies, the way that derogatory terms are created against women. So we see this happen over and over and over again, and especially very recently with the Me Too movement and women not speaking up around sexual assault cases because they are so afraid that somebody is going to counter with, well, what were you wearing? And were you seducing the man, or were you leading him on? Almost as a way to justify sexual assault or to justify that action being somehow okay because of what a woman does. And so the way that we see this in business is we teach women as a society, right? Even if this is not your individual experience within your family, maybe you were raised by a really strong, badass single mom that was really like, fuck the patriarchy. I'm going to raise you to be as badass as possible, right? Even if that was your experience, which I love that for you. There is still a greater societal issue at play here, where we are subconsciously and sometimes consciously and directly telling women to show up in a certain way. And that way is smaller. It is less than. It is, sure, be smart and get an education, but not as much to overpower the man, right? Don't make too much. Don't make too much money. Don't be in such a high position, especially if you want to date and find a man. You essentially want to see yourself as less than, as smaller than, in order to be well liked, in order to be married, etc. Right? There are these flawless standards of beauty that are created within the patriarchal society, where women are supposed to be beautiful and smile and walk down the street and essentially have a certain type of body. And then within more workplace settings, it shows up as lies of professionalism, such as, if you're wearing too much makeup, if you are not wearing any makeup at all, if you are, if you have more of a curvy figure, if you wear less clothing, you are deemed as unprofessional, or you have these words thrown at you, such as you are a slut, or you sleep around, just based on how you look, how you dress, etc. And this also plays into the Madonna whore complex, where if you are essentially fuckable, if you are sexy, if you have this sensual appeal to you, you cannot be, wife material. And if you are quote unquote wife material, then you aren't fuckable, right? And so essentially, like, anyone who says fuck the patriarchy is saying that you can be both, that women do not have to be seen in this certain way, where in society men are praised for having multiple sexual partners. And there are statistics, I'm not going to list them because that's not my job. If you want to go look it up, you can. So men, and this doesn't take you Googling this in order to be like, no, fucking, duh. Where men are praised for having multiple sexual partners, where the exact same thing for women there is shame, there is guilt, there is more shame around masturbation for women than there is for men. Men are actually expected to. It's actually something that is it's an assumption. Okay. This also develops sister wounds, and sister wounds are wounds that we have towards our fellow sisters, our fellow women, or women identifying individuals, people who have uteruses, etc. Right? So like the people around us that we create these connections with end up sometimes being this competition, because look at the magazines, right? Who wore it better, J-Lo or Kim Kardashian, right? Like there are so many ways where we pit women against one another. Why do we do that? We do it because of the patriarchy. Okay, so the next supremacy system that I want to bring up is colonialism. So, colonialism is essentially when a group of people comes in and essentially shows people essentially a quote unquote better way of doing things, a more elevated way of doing things. And so, in the way that this shows up in our business, it's very much like self-victimization, very much like a save me type of energy, or even hiring a coach and expecting that coach to save you and to be the answer to all your problems and to think for you. Outsource your brain to that coach or that program or that course or whatever it might be. So this creates inferior and superior relationships where there is this hierarchical society and this hierarchical culture where we put other coaches on a pedestal, or we put ourselves on a pedestal as ranking over our clients, or thinking that our clients need to show up in this certain way, or we need to show up in this certain way because of colonialism. This is also true in professionalism, where sometimes we feel like we're only going to be accepted and loved and professional and worthy if we don't curse or cover up our tattoos or wear very modest clothing or all of the etc. That is just it's so patriarchal and it's so internalized that sometimes we don't even recognize that we're doing it. Okay, the last one that I want to bring up here is industrialism. And industrialism relates most to productivity because it is very much the assembly lines of creating like how many widgets can you create in a day? How many people can we get on this assembly line so that we can maximize productivity? It's a lot of like maximization type of it reminds me of like very like white entrepreneurial bros that are just like, yeah, let's see how we can maximize our efficiency and how can we time block our schedule and get the most done and Pomodoro and all these things. And there isn't anything inherently wrong with that. It is just what kind of energy are you coming from that is pushing you forward in this way of thinking, I need to produce more, because the more hours I produce and the more products I produce and the more money I make, this equals my worth. And then we invalidate and gaslight our own tiredness. And we're like, no, I'm not tired. I can do more. And then we wear our burnout as a badge of honor in saying, well, you slept 3 hours of sleep. You had 3 hours of sleep last night. I had 1 hour of sleep last night. And then someone across the room goes, I had no sleep last night, right? And as if that is some way for us to show how much work that we've done and how much we need to prove ourselves as business owners or as employees, as workers, right? It's very much this Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. way of working that really honors the people who created it, which is men, right? It honors the men's energy cycle, which are 24 hours. So they're able to show up in that way, where for women, for people who are aligned to the lunar cycle, it actually takes a month for the energy cycles to recycle because we bleed once a month, because our energy levels are different, right? They look different and are meant to be honored. And also the 9 to 5 was created by men for men who didn't have to come home and take care of a family or have children. And for so long, we've just stuck with the cycle, even though it is clearly broken. A lot of things are clearly broken, but this cycle in particular is clearly broken and we haven't shifted out of it, even though it only worked really well for that one period of time. This is also what created the school system, where essentially school systems were created because they wanted to teach children how to produce more and create more during the Industrial Revolution, right? They wanted to essentially educate children so that they can make more money, so they can do more, etc. And so essentially what we're being taught through industrialism is that we are meant to follow rules, and when you follow rules, you will be rewarded. And I think it's important to really recognize where some of these supremacy systems and these cultures are showing up in our business and recognize how we can detox from them, because each one of these is trying to show us in one way or another, hey, I can save you. If you just work harder, if you just hire this coach or this course, or if you just show up more professionally enough, right? That is in order, industrialism, colonialism, and then the patriarchal system. This is essentially masking itself in a way of, hey, I'm going to save you. I am going to say, as long as you continue doing this, I'm going to save you. And we don't really recognize how unhealthy and how unserving this is to us and our highest self and our business, because it's just so common. It's so normal. It's what our parents told us to do. If our parents told us to do it, and if our boss told us to do it, and everyone around us is doing it, can't possibly be wrong, right? Wrong. So where do we go from here, right? Now that you have this, essentially this awakening within your business, and you recognize that these systems are no longer keeping you in a place that is most aligned to you, what do you do? So I want to just give you a message of validation that nothing needs to be done overnight. You don't have to change up your entire way of business overnight, because honestly, a lot of this is going to come through a detoxing, deconditioning process where there's going to be a lot that you are maybe doing, or energies that you're showing up in that you might not even recognize right now. So even just sitting with yourself and being in a little bit of mindfulness and sitting with the spirit of your business or the magic of your business and just going, hey, what's coming up for me right now to release? What are some things that are no longer sustainable in the way that I want to be approaching my business? What is the vision that I have? And what are some things I'm doing right now that are creating this burnout? Or what are some things I'm doing with the energy of, if I do this, I will get more this. If I post every single day, I will book more clients. If I don't post on my stories, if I don't get a new YouTube video up every single week, I will lose people, right? That's coming from this scarcity of, I need to keep as many people as possible and show up in this way. It's this very industrialism way of showing up with this scarcity mentality that causes us to burn out and feel like there's something wrong with us, when in reality there isn't. It's just the systems are fucked. And the quicker you realize this, the more you're able to recognize that your rest is productive. Your tiredness isn't something that you need to fix. You are okay. You are validated. You are loved. You are worthy. You are okay. You don't need to buy a new course every single month, or listen to, a coach that maybe doesn't make you feel like you are getting somewhere in your business, but because you've created this hierarchical structure with them, or they've created that within the container that they have, that you feel like you have to continue showing up in that way, or chasing money milestone after money milestone, because there is this is the way that you feel like success should be defined within your business, and it doesn't need to look like that. So I want this to be, if anything, your permission slip and doors open into a new way of approaching your business and detoxing from these supremacy systems that might have kept you playing small and chasing after things that are creating burnout in your business, and a permission for you to sit in stillness, whether this is journaling or meditation or just being quiet with yourself and sparking a new conversation, a new dialogue with your highest self, to see what comes up for you and allow you to create some introspection within yourself, and then recognize some aligned action steps in order to create a more fulfilling way of showing up in your business and in your life. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe. If this episode resonated with you, please take a screenshot, share it on your Instagram stories, and tag me at tiffanychung.co. I truly appreciate interacting with every one of you. Catch you all on the next one.